Hey everyone. We all have this idea that people like Jacob Collier are somehow built differently, that they came into the world with a special formula we don't have. But what if I told you that's not true? What if I told you that the qualities that made Jacob Collier a 5-time Grammy-winning musician are the same ones that exist within you? We tend to look at people like Jacob Collier and believe they were born with something the rest of us don't have. Some extraordinary gift, a once-in-a-generation talent that set them apart from the start. It's a comforting idea because it creates a clear distinction between them and us. It allows us to admire their achievements from a distance while letting ourselves off the hook. Of course he's that good, we say. He was born with it. But what if that's not true? What if the thing we call talent is only a small fraction of the equation? Jacob Collier's story is not one of instant genius. It's a story of relentless curiosity, deep exploration, and an obsession with learning. He wasn't handed his skill set on a silver platter. He built it layer by layer through thousands of hours of play, trial, and discovery. If you watch early videos of him as a teenager in his bedroom, you don't see a polished, perfected artist. You see someone immersed in the joy of experimenting, stacking harmonies, trying things that don't make sense, and figuring it out as he goes. That's not an innate gift. That's process. We have this idea that talent is what makes the greats great. But talent, at its best, is only a head start. And in most cases, it's barely that, because talent without work is meaningless. There are countless people with raw potential who never develop it, who never put in the hours, who never push beyond their initial spark. What separates someone like Jacob Collier from the rest isn't that he was born special. It's that he kept going. He kept learning, kept stretching himself, kept refining his skills until he became the artist we see today. The problem with the myth of extraordinary talent is that it convinces people they're either born with it or they're not. It discourages effort before effort even begins. It tells people that if something doesn't come easily, it must not be meant for them. But look at any master of their craft, whether it's music, business, sports, or any other field, and you'll find the same truth. Skill is earned. Mastery is built. The people who seem superhuman today were at one point completely ordinary. The difference is they showed up again and again, chipping away at the gap between where they were and where they wanted to be. Even Jacob Collier, with all his musical brilliance, didn't master everything overnight. He didn't start out knowing how to arrange complex harmonies or navigate microtonal music. He learned, he experimented, he failed, and then he tried again. That same process is available to all of us. The ability to improve, to refine, to stretch beyond what we currently know. That's not reserved for a select few. It's something we all have access to, but only if we're willing to put in the work. There's a quote that says, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard." But the real secret is that hard work creates talent. The process of doing something repeatedly, of refining it, of breaking it down and putting it back together, that's what builds skill. That's what turns ordinary people into extraordinary ones. Jacob Collier didn't sit around waiting for greatness to strike him. He actively pursued it. He put in the hours, not because someone told him to, but because he was deeply curious. He followed his instincts, tested the boundaries of what he knew, and built something remarkable. And so the next time you see someone achieving greatness, resist the temptation to chalk it up to talent alone. Instead, recognize the work behind it. Recognize that what looks effortless now was once messy, uncertain, and full of failures. And most importantly, recognize that the same potential exists in you. The only difference between those who achieve and those who don't isn't some rare magical ability. It's the decision to start, to keep going, to lean into the process, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when it feels like you're getting nowhere. The myth of extraordinary talent is just that, a myth. The real story is much simpler. Consistent effort over time leads to extraordinary results. And if that's true, then the question isn't whether you were born with some special ability. The question is, are you willing to do the work? Because if you are, then there's no reason why you can't create something extraordinary too. We are taught from a young age that success follows a specific path. Go to school, get the right qualifications, follow the steps, and you'll get to where you want to be. But when you look at someone like Jacob Collier, you realize that the most remarkable people don't always follow traditional routes. They carve their own paths, driven not by credentials, but by curiosity. They don't wait for permission to start. They simply began. Jacob Collier didn't graduate from a prestigious music school. He didn't have formal training that dictated what he should or shouldn't do. Instead, he built his own learning system. He spent hours in his bedroom experimenting with harmonies, exploring different sounds, and playing with ideas that conventional wisdom might have dismissed. He wasn't concerned with doing things the right way. He was more interested in discovering what was possible. That's the power of curiosity. It isn't bound by rules or confined by expectations. It leads you to explore, to question, and to create without limits. When you follow curiosity rather than credentials, you open yourself up to a world of learning that isn't dictated by a syllabus or a structured program. You learn because you want to, not because you have to. And that kind of learning is the most powerful of all. Too often, people hold themselves back because they think they need qualifications before they can start. They believe they need a degree before they can write, a certificate before they can create, a formal education before they can innovate. But history is filled with people who ignore those barriers. The greatest musicians, artists, entrepreneurs, and thinkers didn't wait to be validated. They followed their instincts. They allowed their natural curiosity to guide them, and in doing so, they built something unique. Jacob Collier didn't sit in a classroom waiting to be taught. He explored. He figured things out by doing. When he didn't know something, he didn't stop. He searched, he experimented, and he played with ideas until they made sense. His entire approach to music is built on discovery rather than instruction. And that's something anyone can apply to their own passions, whether it's music, business, technology, or any other pursuit. Learning doesn't have to come from a textbook. It can come from experience, from trial and error, from simply being fascinated enough to keep going. The internet has made it easier than ever to learn anything. You can teach yourself skills, study experts, break down concepts, and apply them in real time. The tools are there, but the mindset has to come first. You have to be willing to explore without the need for validation. The difference between those who achieve and those who don't isn't intelligence or opportunity, it's the willingness to start. Curiosity pushes you forward when credentials tell you to wait. It allows you to step outside of conventional paths and build something entirely your own. It lets you learn in a way that is personal, meaningful, and deeply connected to what excites you. If Jacob Collier had waited for a degree or for someone to tell him he was qualified, he wouldn't be where he is today. He became a world-renowned musician not because of a traditional education, but because he refused to let the lack of one stop him. That same principle applies to anyone willing to take ownership of their own learning. So the question isn't whether you have the right qualifications. The question is whether you have the curiosity to begin. Because in the end, success isn't about the credentials you collect. It's about the knowledge and experience you create for yourself along the way. We often believe that success is about getting things right the first time. We think the best musicians, artists, and innovators have some kind of magical ability to produce greatness effortlessly. But the truth is, progress isn't about perfection. It's about experimentation. It's about trying something, making mistakes, learning from them, and refining along the way. Jacob Collier is a perfect example of this. He didn't wake up one day and create complex harmonies or intricate musical arrangements without effort. He experimented. He played with sounds, layered different musical elements, and tested things that weren't supposed to work. Some ideas failed, some sounded strange, but through constant experimentation, he discovered new ways of making music that no one had ever heard before. That's not luck, that's the result of a process. One built on exploration, trial, and adjustment. The problem most people face is that they're afraid of getting it wrong. They hesitate to start because they don't want to fail. But failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Every mistake is a piece of information, a lesson, that refines your understanding and brings you one step closer to mastery. Without experimentation, there is no growth. Without mistakes, there is no improvement. When you watch Jacob Collier create music, you see someone who is completely unafraid of trying things that don't make sense. He bends the rules of music theory, plays with unconventional time signatures, and pushes the limits of what's possible. And why? Because he isn't focused on doing what's safe, he's focused on discovering what's interesting. That's the mindset of an innovator. That's how progress happens. This applies to everything in life, not just music. The people who achieve the most are not necessarily the ones with the most talent. They are the ones who are willing to experiment, fail, and keep going. They try different approaches, adjust when something doesn't work, and refine their skills through repetition. Every great entrepreneur, scientist, and creative thinker understands this. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed, I've just found 1,000,000 ways that won't work." That's the power of experimentation. It turns mistakes into stepping stones. But experimentation requires something important, a willingness to be uncomfortable. It means stepping outside of what's familiar and embracing uncertainty. It means being okay with not knowing the answer right away and trusting that you'll figure it out along the way. Jacob Collier didn't wait until he knew everything about music to start composing. He started where he was, played with what he had, and let the process guide him forward. That's how progress is made. Many people hold themselves back because they believe they need everything to be perfect before they begin. They wait until they feel completely ready, but that moment never comes. The only way to get better at something is to start doing it imperfectly, messily, and without guarantees. The first version will never be the best version, but it's a necessary step toward getting there. The world rewards those who are willing to experiment. The most successful people aren't necessarily the smartest or the most skilled from the beginning. They are the ones who keep trying, keep adjusting, and keep improving. They understand that growth isn't a straight line. It's a series of small failures that lead to big breakthroughs. If Jacob Collier had been afraid to experiment, he wouldn't be the artist he is today. His music is a direct result of his willingness to explore without fear of failure. And the same principle applies to anything you want to achieve. If you want to make progress, you have to be willing to experiment. Try something new, make mistakes, learn, adjust, and then do it again. Because success isn't about getting it right the first time, it's about refining, evolving, and discovering along the way. When we think about success, we often imagine a single defining moment, the breakthrough, the big achievement, the grand performance. But in reality, success isn't built in one giant leap. It's constructed through small, consistent efforts stacked on top of each other over time. Just like in music, where harmony is created by layering individual notes and rhythms, greatness in any field is the result of countless small wins working together. Jacob Collier's music is a perfect example of this principle. If you listen to one of his songs, you'll hear layers upon layers of sounds, intricate harmonies, complex rhythms, tiny details that on their own might seem insignificant, but when they come together, they form something breathtaking. His arrangements aren't made in a single moment of genius, they are built piece by piece, with every layer adding to the richness of the final product. This is exactly how success works in life. Every skill you build, every small improvement, every lesson learned, it all stacks up over time. No one becomes great overnight. The people who achieve extraordinary things are simply the ones who understand the power of accumulating small wins. They don't rely on motivation alone, they rely on progress. They take one step, then another, and then another, trusting that the process will eventually lead to something incredible. The problem most people face is that they underestimate the impact of small actions. They want big results immediately, and when they don't see instant progress, they give up. But the truth is, every major achievement is just a collection of tiny victories. A musician doesn't master an instrument in a day. They practice small sections, refine techniques, and slowly build their skill. A writer doesn't finish a novel in one sitting. They write one sentence, then another, until a story takes shape. An athlete doesn't reach peak performance in a week. They train consistently, improving little by little until they reach their full potential. Jacob Collier didn't wake up one day with the ability to arrange complex harmonies. He started by experimenting with a single melody, then adding a harmony, then layering in another sound. Over time, his understanding of music deepened, his skills sharpened, and his creative process became more sophisticated. Each small effort contributed to his growth, and eventually those layers of effort turned into Grammy-winning music. This concept applies to anything you want to achieve. If you want to build a business, improve a skill, or create something meaningful, you have to start by stacking small wins. The key is to focus on consistent incremental progress rather than waiting for a huge breakthrough. Because breakthroughs don't just happen, they are the result of accumulated effort. The challenge is that small wins don't always feel significant in the moment. Practicing for 10 minutes today might not seem like it will make a difference. Writing one paragraph might feel too small to matter. Learning one new skill might seem like a drop in the ocean. But over time, these actions compound. What seems like small, almost invisible progress eventually builds into something powerful. The best part about this approach is that it removes the pressure of needing to have everything figured out right away. You don't need to know exactly how the final picture will look. You just need to keep adding layers, one at a time. Every action, no matter how small, moves you forward. Jacob Collier's music is proof that complexity is built through simple pieces working together, and life works the same way. Success isn't about one giant moment of brilliance. It's about the small, consistent efforts that, when layered together, create something extraordinary. We often think of success as a serious pursuit, something that requires discipline, intense focus, and relentless hard work. And while effort is absolutely necessary, there's another ingredient that is just as important but often overlooked: playfulness. The people who achieve the most aren't just the ones who grind the hardest. They're the ones who genuinely enjoy the process. They see their work as an opportunity to explore, experiment, and have fun. Jacob Collier is a perfect example of this. If you watch him create music, you don't see someone who treats it like a rigid, exhausting task. You see someone who plays. He experiments with sounds, tries things that don't make sense, and follows his curiosity wherever it leads. He doesn't approach music with the mindset of, I have to do this. Instead, it's, I get to do this. That sense of playfulness is what makes his music so unique and innovative. It's not just technically brilliant, it's alive. Playfulness isn't just about having fun, it's a mindset that leads to better creativity, deeper learning, and sustained motivation. When we enjoy what we're doing, we stick with it longer. We push ourselves not because we have to, but because we want to. Play keeps us curious. It keeps us engaged. It allows us to explore new ideas without the fear of failure holding us back. The problem is that many people lose this sense of play as they grow older. As kids, we instinctively learn through play. We experiment, we try new things, we make mistakes without worrying about them. But as adults, we start taking everything too seriously. We convince ourselves that work has to be hard, that progress only comes through struggle, and that anything fun must be unproductive. But this mindset is not only false, it's counterproductive. When we stop playing, we stop innovating. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history have come from people who embraced playfulness. Scientists, artists, and entrepreneurs often talk about moments of discovery happening when they were just messing around, when they were exploring without pressure, testing new ideas just for fun. That's because play removes the fear of failure. When we approach something playfully, mistakes don't feel like failures, they feel like part of the game. We try more, learn more, and ultimately achieve more. Jacob Collier's entire musical journey has been shaped by this philosophy. He didn't lock himself in a room and grind through music theory textbooks for years before making a song. He played with harmonies, looped random sounds, and followed his instincts. He allowed himself to have fun with the process, and that's what led him to develop a completely unique style. His success wasn't the result of strict, joyless practice. It was built on curiosity, exploration, and a deep love for what he was doing. This applies to any pursuit, whether it's music, business, athletics, or personal growth. The people who go the farthest are the ones who find joy in the process. Because when something feels like play, you don't need willpower to keep going. You naturally want to do it. The challenge is that we've been conditioned to believe that success only comes through suffering, that if something feels fun, it must not be serious enough. But the truth is, fun is a competitive advantage. It keeps you engaged when others burn out. It keeps you experimenting when others get stuck. It allows you to push limits without feeling like you're forcing yourself. If you want to achieve something great, don't just focus on working hard. Focus on finding the fun in it. Play with ideas. Experiment without fear. Treat mistakes as part of the game. The most successful people aren't the ones who take themselves the most seriously. They're the ones who embrace curiosity, creativity, and the sheer joy of doing what they love. Because serious success doesn't come from grinding through the process. It comes from playing your way through it. We often celebrate individual success stories as if they happen in isolation, as if one person alone is responsible for their greatness. But when you look deeper, you realize that the most extraordinary achievements are never the result of a single person working alone. They happen through collaboration, shared experiences, and meaningful connections with others. No one achieves greatness in a vacuum. Progress happens when people come together, exchange ideas, challenge each other, and build on one another's strengths. Jacob Collier is a perfect example of this. While he is undeniably a musical genius, his greatest achievements have come not just from his individual talent, but from the way he connects with others. He doesn't just create music alone in his room. He thrives in collaboration. He brings in other artists, works with musicians from different backgrounds, and constantly expands his creative world by embracing the ideas and perspectives of others. His music isn't just about him, it's about the collective energy of the people he surrounds himself with. This is a powerful lesson for anyone trying to achieve something meaningful. Whether you're building a business, pursuing a creative endeavor, or working toward a personal goal, success isn't just about what you can do, it's about who you connect with along the way. The people you interact with, the mentors who guide you, the teammates who challenge you, and the communities you engage with all play a crucial role in shaping your path. Too often people believe they have to figure everything out on their own. They isolate themselves, thinking that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that seeking collaboration somehow diminishes their individual achievements. But the truth is, the most successful people understand that connection is a strength, not a weakness. They actively seek out partnerships, they listen to others, and they recognize that every great idea becomes even greater when it's built with input from different perspectives. Collaboration isn't just about dividing the workload, it's about expanding what's possible. When you work with others, you gain access to knowledge, skills, and ideas that you might never have discovered on your own. You see things from different angles, solve problems more creatively, and push yourself further than you could have alone. The right collaboration can turn a good idea into a groundbreaking one. Jacob Collier's music is a testament to this. His collaborations with artists like Stevie Wonder, Coldplay, and Herbie Hancock have not only elevated his work, but have also created something far beyond what any of them could have achieved individually. He understands that true magic happens when musicians feed off each other's energy, when different influences come together to create something fresh and unexpected. But collaboration isn't just about working with famous people or being part of a big project. It's about connecting with anyone who challenges you, supports you, and brings out the best in you. It could be a friend who shares your passion, a mentor who pushes you to grow, or a community of like-minded people who inspire you to keep going. The key is to surround yourself with those who elevate you, not those who hold you back. If you're trying to achieve something meaningful, ask yourself, who am I learning from? Who am I sharing my ideas with? Who is challenging me to think bigger, try harder, and reach further? Because the more you connect with others, the more you open yourself up to new possibilities. Success isn't about being a lone genius. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself. It's about recognizing that your best work will come not from isolation, but from collaboration. The greatest achievements don't happen alone. They happen when people come together, share their gifts, and create something extraordinary. We are taught from an early age to follow the rules, to stick to what works, to operate within the boundaries that have already been established. The systems we learn in school, the traditions we inherit, and the structures society builds around us all reinforce this idea. But the truth is, the people who create real change, the ones who redefine industries, art, and culture, are the ones who don't just follow the rules. They challenge them, they bend them, and sometimes they break them completely to create something new. Jacob Collier is one of those people. If you listen to his music, you quickly realize that he doesn't just work within the traditional frameworks of music. He reinvents them. He takes harmony, rhythm, and melody and reshapes them in ways that seem impossible. He blends genres that were never meant to go together, uses instruments in unconventional ways, and structures his songs in ways that defy traditional expectations. And that's exactly why his music is so revolutionary. He isn't just following the path that others have walked. He's carving his own. This is the mark of every true innovator. They don't just accept the way things have always been done. They ask, what if there's another way? They push against the limits of what is considered normal or acceptable, and in doing so, they expand the boundaries of what is possible. The greatest breakthroughs in history, whether music, business, technology, or science, have come from people who refused to play by the rules and instead chose to redefine the game. The problem is, most people hesitate to challenge the status quo. They fear stepping outside the lines, worried about judgment, failure, or rejection. But when you look at the people who have left a lasting impact on the world, you see a common pattern. They weren't afraid to disrupt. They weren't afraid to try something untested, something that seemed ridiculous at the time. And more often than not, those radical ideas are what changed everything. And think about the musicians who shaped history. The Beatles, Prince, Miles Davis. None of them simply followed the musical trends of their time. They took risks, experimented, and dared to create something different. The same is true outside of music. Steve Jobs didn't just build another computer, he revolutionized the way we interact with technology. Elon Musk didn't just improve existing cars, he reimagined transportation entirely. These people weren't successful because they played by the rules. They were successful because they rewrote them. Jacob Collier's approach to music teaches us an important lesson. Innovation doesn't come from staying within existing structures. It comes from asking, what happens if I do this differently? It's about taking what exists and transforming it into something that never existed before. And this mindset isn't just for musicians. It applies to anyone who wants to create something meaningful. But breaking the rules doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean rejecting structure for the sake of rebellion. True innovation comes from deeply understanding the existing rules first, knowing them so well that you can see their limitations, and then choosing to go beyond them. Jacob Collier knows music theory inside and out, but he doesn't let it confine him. Instead, he uses that knowledge as a foundation to build something entirely new. If you want to do something extraordinary, you can't be afraid to step outside the lines. You can't let tradition or expectation dictate what is possible. The people who make the biggest impact are the ones who dare to question, who dare to experiment, and who dare to create on their own terms. At the end of the day, the most powerful question you can ask yourself is this: am I simply following the path that has been set for me, or am I creating my own? Because the ones who change the world aren't the ones who just follow the game. They are the ones who redefine it. We tend to look at people like Jacob Collier, Grammy-winning artists, brilliant creators, groundbreaking innovators, and assume they are somehow built differently. We believe they must have been born with something extraordinary, something the rest of us don't have. But that's not true. The difference between them and everyone else isn't some rare, magical talent. It's belief in action. The truth is, you are already more creative than you think. The only thing separating you from those at the top is how much you trust in your creativity and how often you act on it. Creativity is not some exclusive gift that only a select few possess. It's a skill, an approach, a way of thinking, and you already have it. As children, we all express creativity freely. We draw, sing, build, and imagine without hesitation. We don't judge our ideas or worry if they are good enough. But as we grow older, we start to doubt ourselves. We compare our work to others, we fear looking foolish, and we start believing the lie that creativity is reserved for the talented. Over time, we stop creating, not because we lack ability, but because we no longer trust ourselves. Jacob Collier wasn't born knowing how to arrange mind-bending harmonies. He wasn't handed a manual for musical innovation. What made him extraordinary wasn't just talent, it was curiosity. It was a willingness to experiment, to explore, and to believe that his ideas were worth pursuing. He didn't wait for permission to create. He started playing, layering sounds, trying things that didn't always make sense, and through that process, he discovered his own unique voice. This is what separates creative people from everyone else. Not talent, not luck, just the willingness to try, to follow an idea, even when it feels uncertain, to take action instead of overthinking. Every single person has creative potential, but most people don't allow themselves to access it because they assume creativity means perfection. They think they need to have a fully formed masterpiece in their mind before they even begin. But real creativity doesn't work like that. It's messy, unpredictable, and full of trial and error. It's about making something, learning from it, and refining as you go. The biggest obstacle to creativity is not a lack of skill, it's self-doubt. It's that voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough, I don't have original ideas, or someone else can do this better. But that voice is wrong. Every great artist, musician, writer, and entrepreneur has had those same doubts. The only difference is that they pushed through them. They created anyway. They believed in their ability to grow. And through that process, they became extraordinary. If you've ever had an idea that excited you, a moment where you saw something differently, a time when you solved a problem in a unique way, then you are creative. The question is, are you acting on it? Are you allowing yourself to explore? Are you giving yourself permission to create without judgment? Because the more you create, the more creative you become. It's not about waiting for the perfect idea or the perfect conditions. It's about starting now with whatever you have and letting your creativity unfold along the way. Jacob Collier became a Grammy-winning artist not because he had something you don't, but because he trusted his creativity and put it into action. And you can do the same. You don't need permission. You don't need anyone to validate your ideas. You are already more creative than you think. The only thing left to do is believe it and begin. We often look at people like Jacob Collier, innovators, artists, and world changers, and assume they possess something extraordinary that the rest of us don't. But the truth is, the difference isn't talent alone. It's curiosity, it's experimentation, it's the willingness to take action, to challenge the rules, to embrace playfulness, and to connect with others. Creativity isn't something reserved for a select few. It's something we all have. The only thing that holds most people back is doubt. But the greatest creators, the ones who redefine what's possible, aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who push forward despite uncertainty. They layer small wins over time, turning tiny efforts into something extraordinary. You are already more creative than you think. You don't need permission to start. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to believe in your ability to grow, to experiment without fear, and to trust that your unique way of seeing the world has value. Because success, whether in music, business, or life, isn't about following the existing path. It's about creating your own. So stop waiting. Stop questioning whether you're good enough. Start playing. Start exploring. Start doing. The only thing standing between you and something extraordinary is the choice to begin. So what will you create? What will you experiment with? What will you build, piece by piece, until it becomes something remarkable? Because you are more like Jacob Collier than you think, and the world is waiting to hear your music.